What? X Harper here, WWE2k19. Welcome back. Let's hope and pray that the internet connection stays strong. It didn't yesterday, and it cut me off after like 30 seconds of trying to do this video. So, what is today's video all about? Today's video is about Universe Mode. I am going to show you all of the roster that I have at the moment in my Universe Mode. Now, I don't know if you know this, but if you've seen any of my previous videos, you will know that I haven't actually really... I've started the first week of Universe Mode, but I haven't started the main game. I haven't really started playing it properly, simply because I'm still working on loads of stuff, which I will go into after I've been through the roster, so stay tuned for the whole video. That way you'll get to see all of the added extras that I've put into my Universe Mode, especially in the calendar. I've made a couple of changes that are really significant, and I think really cool hints and tips for you on a little bit of a workaround for belts and how they work in the game. So I'll get to that later, but for right now, let's jump straight into the superstars. Now, if you haven't seen it before, I've got a recipe that I use for the overall ratings. Now, if you want to know what that is, go and find it on my YouTube channel. It's not that far back, and it's called, I think it's called Roster Recipe or Ranking Recipe, something like that. Have a look. But if you don't like them, just ignore them for now. I should give you the caveat that, before we even start, that I do not watch modern wrestling. All I ever read is negative stuff about it on the internet. So it really put, actually the fans are the people who put me off of trying to watch the product, if I'm honest. I've watched a few bits of it when I, just to sort of see what it's like, but I don't watch NXT. So anybody in NXT, I just do not know who they are. Like, you can just assume that I don't know who they are. So if you see some of them and you're like, why on earth are they lower than everyone else? Well, it's because I just probably don't know who they are. So I apologize if I offend you for any of these ratings. But I think on a whole, a lot of the bigger guys, well-known guys, and some of the ones I actually know full through, the ones that I've watched, I think hopefully you'll agree roughly on how I've rated them. So here we go. Adam Cole, he is on Raw. Again, I'll go through this as we go through each character. You've got Aiden English on WCW Nitro. So yes, what I do in my Universe Mode is I mix a lot of the modern and the classic era stuff. I don't see the point in just creating a Legends universe or an old school Attitude Era universe. To me, that's a waste of all of these wrestlers that are on the roster. Plus, when it comes to WCW, I can always do with some jobbers for Goldberg to run through, just to make my Universe Mode a little bit more fun. But let's just see this again. We've got Aiden English. Now, I'll go through the teams for you after, but I won't do any detail on them. I'm going to do another video that breaks down each and every stable individually and just goes through each of them, showing you who's in what team and why. So AJ Styles, he is an 88 overall. He's in ECW on my game. It's where I believe he would have been, or at least started. I know he was in WCW at the beginning of his career, but for my Universe Mode, I think he really works well in ECW. He's like a good technical wrestler, but he's not quite, in my opinion, he's not quite on the level of the legends that were around at the time. So for me, he would have been one of my biggest, if not the biggest star in ECW. Akam goes there. Akira Tozawa. Again, most of what I've done is I've basically tried to stay true to how these industries worked. So WCW had kind of a foothold on all of the Japanese and even a lot of the Mexican wrestlers as well, in terms of North American Western pro wrestling. So I've thrown a lot of the Japanese, Chinese, whatever they are, the Asian wrestlers into WCW just to really fill out that world. Alberto Del Rio, he's made a big move into the LWO, as you can see. I love having him in WCW. I think he's a good fit for the company. It makes sense. He's a good technical wrestler, and he's a heel, but he goes well with one of my stables, which I'll go through later. Aleister Black, Alexa Bliss on Nitro. Now, I haven't touched the females' ratings yet, so again, if you see their ratings and you're like, why are all the women in the 90s and all the guys are like Aleister Black is a 71, it's just because I haven't even touched the women's roster yet. I'm still working on it. It's going to probably be a while until I get to them because of the amount of work I'm doing on the male part of the roster at the moment, but I will get there, and I will show you that once it's done. Alexander Wolf, Alicia Fox, Alundra Blaze, WCW, Andre Cien Almas. I know this is the one that I think a lot of people think he's a great wrestler. To be honest, I've never seen him wrestle, so I'm not going to give the guy a massive score when I don't even know him. I am going to try and start watching some of the product, by the way. If you think I should, let me know, and I will. I'm sorry. I'm a bad man. Andre the Giant is in Raw and the Saturday night main event, which I'll go into later, so don't... I know that'll be a bit confusing when you see that, but there is a reason for it. ECW for Angelo Dawkins. For me, this character looks exactly like he would go in ECW. Animal in WCW, obviously, with the Legion of Doom or the Road Warriors. Apollo Crews, ECW, Araya Davari, Roy's War. Arn Anderson for Horseman! He's in WCW. Obviously, Asuka would be in WCW. Bam Bam Bigelow, WCW. I always debate whether to put him in ECW or WCW, but for some reason, I think what he does, he fills out a little bit of the hardcore division, because there is a hardcore belt in WCW on the game. So I'm like, I need somebody who can justify that division, and Bam Bam's a great person to do that. Plus, he's got good appeal around the roster as well, so I can throw him in some bigger matches and smaller matches. He's a real versatile wrestler, so works well. Baron Corbin, 81 overall in ECW. Baron Blade. Now, as far as I understand, this guy's a fake character who's just on the game in my career mode, so he's just crap. He's like one of the worst. He's basically the Paul Heyman kind of guy in ECW for me at the moment. Batista, obviously a big score overall for him. Again, he's on 2 shows, but I'll explain that later. But he's on ECW because he is a hardcore guy. The reason that the Batista 10 is 36 overall is just to help me separate which one I like to use. So what you'll see is a lot of the wrestlers that I don't use in the universe mode are simply a 36 overall. It just means I've minimized their stats because I'm never going to use them, and I don't like them getting in the way and being near the character that I do like, if that makes sense. Bayley, ECW, Becky Lynch, ECW, Beth Phoenix, WCW, Bianca Belair, Raw is War, Big Boss Man, Raw is War, and as you can see, he is the current hardcore champion. Big E, Raw, Big Show, Raw, Billy Kay, Raw, Billy Gunn, Raw, Billy Kidman, WCW. I've done something interesting with him and the Flock. They're on the game for me, so look out for that at the end of this. Bo Dallas, Bob Orton, little Randy's daddy, is on the game. I've put him in Raw, and the way that I've done the stable, it actually works well because I've balanced 2 in each organisation. Bobby Fish, don't know who you are. I think the fish thing looks stupid on his trunks, but hey, he's a jobber for me. Bobby Roode, Booker T. I love Bobby Roode, and the stable that I've done for them is phenomenal. I wish that Rick and Mr. Perfect were alive, because they would be brilliant mentors for someone like Bobby Roode. Booker T, obviously in Harlem Heat gear. You can get that gear, by the way, on Community Creations. I've added that. It's available for download. It's like what he wore in the sort of mid-90s when he was in Harlem Heat. Braun Strowman, now he is he's my ECW television champion. Not quite good enough for the top spots, but he's doing well. Bray Wyatt, 84. Forget that one. Bret Hart is one of the GOATs on my game, so he's 95 overall. And in WCW, even though I know that he was worse in WCW, I love having him on WCW, okay? I just like him being there. I can make up for all the times he had those bad matches. Brian Pillman, this was a community creation. This was one that I downloaded yesterday and worked on. I didn't like it, and I even tried to do my own core of Brian, but it just wouldn't work. With the images that I had, I couldn't get a really good Brian Pillman. So I just went back to this one and basically edited and changed the face, the hair, the outfit. Just tried to change it to get him back. But on this game, I've put him on Raw. Usually I put him in the Four Horsemen, but this time I've put him back in the Hart Foundation, but my version of the Hart Foundation, which I'll go through later. Brie Bella, Bulldog Raw, and again I'll explain that choice later. Brock Lesnar is ECW with Paul Heyman managing. Bruce Beefcake Raw. Bryan Danielson is on Raw. Now I do have Daniel Bryan and Bryan Danielson on my game, but separate organizations. I don't know why I do this, but if a character has two different personas and I feel like they're different enough that they feel like a different wrestler, then I tend to keep them both on the game, but I separate them. I don't like to put them... I would never want Daniel Bryan to fight Bryan Danielson. So you'll see where Daniel goes later. Bubba Ray Dudley, Tag Team Champion, ECW. Buff Bagwell, he's in my Nitro, WCW Nitro. Cactus Jack joins him. Carmella goes into WCW. Cedric Alexander. Raw is War. Cesaro, WCW. Chad Cable, WCW. I'm going to shut up now and just go through some of these and pick the ones that stand out. Chris Benoit, obviously a big one. Four Horsemen. I love that creation. You should download that one. It is awesome. The 15 Faces of Jericho. I use the 2001. Christian, Raw. There's a reason he's wearing red and black. I'll tell you that later. CM Punk. This is a decent core that I got. Cody Rhodes, my cruiserweight champion. That's right, cruiserweight champion in WCW. He would have been a mainstay had WCW survived. So I've got him there. Don't know who this guy is, but I think he's on the My Career mode. So I've just thrown him in. Gave him a different outfit. Whatever. ECW. Kurt Hawkins, ECW. Curtis Axel. Oh, here's D'Lo. So D'Lo is one of my creations. I went back and had a look at D'Lo Brown. Made him a lot more realistic to his real life persona. And I think I've done a great job. He's been getting a good amount of downloads. So go and hit him up on Community Creations. Testify! Devon Dudley. ECW Tag Team Champion, as you can see. And there's Daniel Bryan. So Daniel Bryan is in ECW. I love him in ECW. To me, that's the business. That was always the brand that he should have belonged to. I don't think he's a match for WE ever. I just wish there was a better organisation for him to join over WWE, because he's clearly a bit of a lost sheep there at the moment. Always has been. He's never fitted in properly. So as you can see, the other 20 Daniel Bryans, none of those are in my game. You've got Dash Wilder, DDP, bang! Dean Ambrose, Lunatic Fringe. I've watched enough to know that. He's in ECW. I love his character in ECW. It makes sense to me. Dean Malenko, WCW. No Diesel. The Disciple, WCW. Like I said, different characters, you know, Brutus and the Disciple, same guy, different characters, so he gets to go into WCW. Dolph is in WE, Drew WCW. From what I understand of him, he's quite a good technical wrestler, so I just figured WCW always had better technical wrestlers in my opinion, but WE always had the better personalities and characters, so that was to me the difference between the two brands. So I like to try and match that as much as I can. Another reason Bret Hart is in WCW is that, in my opinion, he's a better technical wrestler than he is a good character. So there you go. Drew McIntyre. Do love. So dude's in my ECW mode. As you can see, I had to go back and recreate that whole outfit using a different, two different created wrestlers, created dude loves, and I merged them together, and that's what came out the other side. So the love child of two dude loves, and I think he looks great. The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, he's in WCW with his son, which would have been so badass to have him and Cody together. Eddie, Latino Heat. He's in WCW, as you can see, leading a stable as well. Edge, again, not a loner on this, with Christian, WWE. Although he did wrestle on WCW, that I found out the other day, so I might even go and create his character in WCW and throw him on there just as like a jobber. Almago, no idea who he is. I think he's on the My Career mode, but he goes in WCW. Elias, he to me would either be an ECW guy or a Raw guy, so I think I just kind of opted with Raw. Ember Moon, Epico Colon, Eric Young. Now, I use the actual Rowan rather than any of the ones with the number at the end. I try to avoid using them, but unfortunately that's life. Okay, Farouk. Again, one of my community creations. I made this model. Go and download it if you like it. He's obviously the head of the nation with The Rock. Spoiler alert. Fandango. Fatu, so I made Fatu with Rikishi, and Fatu in mind, he was in WCW, so he does justify actually putting him there, but made famous in the WWF, I guess, with the head shrinkers. Finn Balor, WE. I don't use the demon at all, even though the face paint looks cool. Just not my kind of thing. Gentleman Jack Gallagher. Hello, Jinsuji. Gentleman Jack Gallagher, he's in my ECW mode. Ghost is my creation, so this is just my guy that I use in my career mode if I ever play it. But I also create him every year within the main game, and then usually what I do is give him a really slow build over the course of his first year in the business. He starts with the European title, which he won against D'Lo Brown last week, and then I build him, slow build him, but then he wins basically every title in the first year of the business. So I say it's a slow build. It's a slow build in comparison to this game, but overall, not so much. The Giant, yes, he's back on my game. I love the Giant. I wish that they would add him to as a different iteration of the Big Show, but they never do. So I love the Giant. Big deal for me to have him on the game. That was another person's creation, by the way. I then just re-edited and changed the face. Tried to get it closer to what he looked like as the Giant in WCW. I think I'm pretty close. Unfortunately, you can't upload it because it was somebody else's core that I then edited. That's a real pain in the ass for me, but that's fine. I understand that. The Godfather. The whole train. He's in WWE. Builds up my hardcore division. Goldberg. I've never done this with him, but with Goldberg, he's now the $1 million champion. I usually build him up similar to Ghost throughout the year. My storyline for Goldberg is that the NWO have blocked him from winning anything in universe mode. So what they've done is they've told Goldberg, you can't win any title unless you start from the bottom and work your way up this industry. So the idea behind that is that the NWO are stopping Goldberg from winning the world heavyweight title, so they make him go through everybody else again. So essentially he's got to recreate the streak, and that's how I do my universe mode with Goldberg. I build him up through the belts, with eventually him at some point, maybe not even in the first year, but at some point he will win the world title back, and whatever, and just go from there. And then I can start building him the way he should have been built in WCW, instead of the way they completely messed him up. And he also messed himself up a little bit too. Goldust is one of my favourites. I really love Goldust. I think he was an underrated Intercontinental Champion. So I always start first mode. He will continue with that title and probably stay in the Intercontinental division indefinitely. Grand Metallic WCW. The Great Kabuki I added a couple of days ago as another download. He goes into WCW. Greg the Hammer Valentine, WCW. Thanks for the comment, Jinsuji. Yeah, I mean, people love all the different types of Randy Ortons. I actually prefer the old one too, because he doesn't have any hair. The one that he's got now, to me, it's as embarrassing as John Cena's new haircut. So I'm just like, I prefer the old one too. Hardcore Holly, he props up the hardcore division, obviously. I haven't got Crash Holly yet, which is a bit of a disappointment, but I'm not prepared to create it myself because I'm doing other models. But if somebody's listening, please go and create or find a Crash Holly and tell me about it. I would love to know, because I'd love to get Crash on the game. Harley Race, he goes into WCW as the one half of a stable that I will go into later. Harper, he's on the game, he's in ECW. Hawk finishes that. Heath Slater's on ECW. Triple H. Now this, I don't know why I've done this. I need to rename him. This is Hunter Hearst Helmsley, not Triple H. This is one of my examples of having two different characters. To me, Triple H and Hunter Hearst Helmsley are actually two different characters to me. So I like Hunter to be in ECW and Triple H to be in WE, which you'll find out why later. Hideo Itami, WCW. Hollywood Hulk Hogan, now he's not a 99 overall. He's second in the power rankings for Saturday Night Main Event, so just ignore the ranking. He's a little bit lower than that. But yeah, I love that Hollywood Hogan character. I think he looks really cool. IRS. This is a great creation from Dr. Gorilla Nuts on Twitter. If you go and follow him, he makes awesome creations. I did edit the face myself, so I changed it a little bit. He approved. He was okay with it when he saw it, so I'm okay. I haven't hurt someone. Me and him haven't got beef. We follow each other, and I actually really love what he produces. So go and download his version. I just added the little red tattoo on his neck to make the tie look like it's actually filled out. And then I just edited his face, made it a little, in my opinion, made it closer to how he really looked in real life. Ivory in ECW, Jacqueline, WCW, she is the manager for Harlem Heat. Jake Roberts, now this is a shock. He's my WE champion. What? Never won a title before. I always do this because to me it's a hat tip to Jake Roberts. I loved him. I thought he and Kurt Hennig are two people who should have won the WE title that never did. And so I always start the game with Jake Roberts. And actually he beat Randy Orton for the title. But I always start him with the title to give him a bit of a run that, in my opinion, he deserved. Jason Jordan, WCW, yes. Kurt Angle's love child. Jeff Hardy is on Raw, obviously. Jeff Jarrett I moved last night because I didn't like the fact he was in WCW. I just think he's better placed in WE. I think it suits him better. He can run for the US title in my universe mode. I don't think he was good enough for the Intercontinental title personally, but that will be revealed soon with the people who actually are in my Intercontinental ranking for that title. Anyway, Jey Uso and obviously Jimmy Uso are both ECW. Jim Neidhart goes with Bret Hart over to WCW. He was in WCW for a time, so I'm comfortable with him being there. Jinder Mahal, I can't stand. He is in ECW. I'm sorry if I've offended you, but he's not a good wrestler. I can't believe they gave him the belt. It was all a political maneuver about breaking into the Indian market. I just think that was a real damage that they did to the WE title. Fortunately, he didn't hold it long enough to permanently damage it, so it's all sort of forgiven. John Cena, yeah, an 88 overall. That's right, you're seeing it. You can't see me. I just don't like John Cena. I don't think he's that. I think he's overhyped because he came from an era of wrestling where, yes, I know he started in the Attitude Era, but that was when he was a rookie. When he came into his own, he was basically a standalone star, and so they overhyped him. They made him way better than he deserved to be. And I know people don't agree with that, but for me, he is never even going to be considered as one of the greatest of all time. I simply think he was the guy who was there when there was no one else, and so he held the title, and it's, in my opinion, he's part of the reason that WE declined into the state that it's in at the moment. So, I'm sorry. I know I would offend people with that, but he's still not bad. 88's a good score. Johnny Gargano, don't know much about him. I think I've heard that he's a decent technical wrestler, but he's a jobber on my game in WCW. Along with Jushin Thunder Liger, who I love. He's always got a great crew. Kerry Sane, she goes WCW along with Kalisto as well. Kane, I don't use it. I don't understand why they've added these two models, to be honest. But how funny was it when his wig fell off at Crown Jewel? I peed myself laughing. Shawn Michaels, I'm sure he did it on purpose. There's a joke in there of why he did that. Jealous maybe that he's just lost all his hair, wanted Kane's back. I don't know. He should. I wish he'd have put the wig on. It would have been so funny if Michaels had have put the mask on, but he didn't. He was too professional for that. Maybe in the Attitude Era he would have done something like that. Kane 98 is my favourite iteration of Kane, so he's on there in a tag team with his brother. Carl Anderson, ECW. Carmen Mustafa, Raw is War. Again, one of my creations. You can download him from Community Creations. Cassius Ono, WCW. Ken Shamrock. This was a decent community creation that I went in and changed. I would advise you to do the same. Go and download Ken Shamrock, but then you need to basically, from what I remember, change his nose. His nose is not right, and so if you just change it a little bit, it looks a lot better. And I think what's been finished is a much more accurate looking Ken Shamrock. He's my US champion to start the Universe mode. Kerry Von Erich, I found this great core a few weeks back, actually. Threw him straight into WCW. I don't have his brother on the game. Probably won't unless somebody makes a really good version of him. Kevin Nash. So I recreated his 1998, circa 98 outfit. He is obviously in the NWO and the tag team champion at the moment. Kevin Owens is in ECW. I think for me he would have fit into that brand perfectly. Kevin Sullivan I downloaded yesterday. Forgive the fact that he looks... not sure about his skin colour, you know. I don't think I've seen anybody who's that kind of skin colour. But I like the face. I did separate the eyes because the person who created this made him like squinty-eyed and cockeyed. And I was just like, you can't do that. Because Kevin Sullivan's eyes weren't close at all. So I just repositioned them and it still looks great. So it's still a good model. It's just the skin colour's a bit weird. Killian Dane, ECW... King Book. I'm disgusted that they have taken away Booker T and included King Booker. I'm not a fan of that character at all. So that's why Booker T you saw earlier, no King Booker on my game, doesn't deserve to be on there. Kofi Kingston, obviously with the New Day. Connor, ECW. Kurt Angle is in ECW. Believe it or not, it's where he started his career in wrestling. I know people won't remember, but he was offended at ECW when they did a crucifix angle with the Sandman, and he just got offended. Obviously, if you know Kurt, he's religious, so he just got offended by it and left after basically a few days. I don't even think he was in the company a day, but he was officially in ECW. So I throw him back into his old company and he wrestles for ECW. And as you can see, he's the current champion, deservedly. I like the head, Kurt Angle, rather than the baldy. But, you know, whatever. Personal preference. Kyle O'Reilly, Raw. Lana, Raw. Lars Sullivan, WCW. For me, he's like a perfect WCW wrestler. Lex Luger, WCW. He's in a stable on my game, and he's not with Sting, but they're still best buddies, as always. Lince Dorado, Raw. Lita, Raw. Liv Morgan, Raw. Luke Gallows, ECW. Mandy Rose, ECW. Mankind. Again, I can't believe they allowed us to put his mask on the game, but then they forgot that Mankind had long hair and stopped any of the long hair options working with Mankind's mask. It's ridiculous, but typical 2K not being diligent and actually doing their jobs the way they should be, but that's another story. Anyway, this Mankind looks really good. I think there's a couple of things I could probably make better. The little have a nice day smile on his outfit would be nice, but that's all little bits that you don't really see anyway. But Mankind's in WE. I do, and as you've probably seen already, I have all of Mick Foley's iterations. I've got Mankind, Dude Love, Cactus Jack, Mankind WE, Cactus Jack WCW, and Dude Love goes in ECW for me because I think the character is more appropriate for ECW. Mark Henry is back on Raw. This is a great core. I saw somebody posting today about a Mark Henry that they attempted. It's nowhere near the level of this one. You need to go and get it. It's like, I think it's in the top 3 rows when you first go into Community Creations. So it's not hard to find him, but it just looks awesome. Whoever did it has done a fantastic job. Maurice, ECW. Matt Hardy, Raw. Mickie James, ECW. It's where she used to be before WE. The Miz, ECW. I'm not even sure if he was in ECW, but he's a good fit for me in there. Mojo Rawley, ECW. Montez Ford goes into WCW. Yes, I broke up that little tag team. I don't know what it's called, but I broke them up because for me, one's ECW looking, the other one's more of a WCW guy. McMahon, Vinnie Mac, the idiot who does everything his own way because he hates everybody other than himself and a couple of his friends in WWE at the top of the roster. I always throw him on Raw. He has a feud with Stone Cold usually over the WWE title, which I might go into and explain to you later. Mr. Perfect, WCW, obviously I really love him in that. Mustafa Ali goes in ECW, Naomi, WCW, Natalia, WCW, Nia Jax, Raw, Nick Miller, Raw, Nikki Bella, Raw, No Way Jose, ECW, Noam Dar. I'm just going to wait until I see a good one. Okay, Owen Hart, this is a great core that you should download. I think Dr. Gorilla Nuts. No, I don't know. I don't want to say it. I think it was Dr. Gorilla Nuts, but I'm really sorry to the person who created it if I've got that wrong. There's a really good one on here. I just went in and edited a couple of things. I changed his hair color, and I think his hairstyle as well, but I also changed his entrance attire. I actually didn't touch the outfit or his face at all because it's perfect. They've just done such a great job with that character. You should go and download that. And even the outfit, the attire, they've just nailed. Last year there was one that there was a few problems with the trunks, but this year whoever's done that has nailed it. Paige, ECW, I think she would have been perfect as an ECW wrestler. Papa Shango, ECW, again, Godfather and Papa Shango, same guy, different characters. Karma Mustafa, different character. They're different enough, Karma and Godfather, that I don't mind them being in the same universe. They're the only two, actually, that are in the same brand. But Papa Shango goes into ECW. I think his character would have been much better served there as that kind of weird character that he was. Paul Orndorff, this is my core. I created this one that you see in front of you. I personally think it's the best one that's out there, but there are some very good ones, so I don't want to take away from anybody else, but you can download him whenever you want, if you want. He goes in WCW, part of a stable that I'll show you soon. Pete Dunne, WE. Peyton Royce, WE. Primo Colon, WE. Psychosis is in WCW, and as you can see, part of the LWO. I will go into that stable later. R-Truth, ECW. Randy Orton, Ginsuji, if you're still watching, Randy's on here. Unfortunately, I've used the one where he's got hair, but the reason I do this is simply because I hate the way that the number appears after their name. I really wish they would just take that off completely, but unfortunately they don't, so we're stuck with it. So that stays on. Macho Man Randy Savage is in WCW, obviously in the NWO, as you can see from his Madness attire. Raven is in WCW. That may be a shock to people, but again, as I said earlier with Bam Bam Bigelow, I like the hardcore division in WCW, so Raven adds to that. Whereas if without Raven and Bam Bam, there's no one, essentially. So I like having Raven and the Flock because that adds a stable as well. Ravishing Rick Rude, WCW. The only guy to appear on two different brands on the same night in the history of wrestling. Amazing guy. I love Rick Rude. Should have won the title, never did. Razor's not on the game. That's right, I don't have him in WE. He's too close to Scott Hall. The same with Diesel. Like, they're so synonymous with the people they became in WCW that I'm just like, I can't put myself to putting them in WE as well, even though I love Razor's music and character. I do use his music for the Harlem Heat team, though, which is a bit of a hint. It's cool music. It goes well. It works. Just try it and see. Rey Mysterio. Now, he was in the LWO, okay? Let's get this out of the way. He wasn't liked, and he hated it when he was in it. And he wasn't booed. He was a fan favourite. And the storyline was basically that he struggled with this idea of he wanted to be loyal to his friends in, Eddie Guerrero and the rest of the Latino wrestlers. But the problem was he loved the fans, and the idea he had this sort of heart-wrenching feud where he was in and out of the LWO, struggled, and then eventually they just kicked him out anyway. I think it was a wasted angle, personally. I think they should have made Ray embrace it. And if he was a fan favourite, it wouldn't have mattered. He could have just been a face, and then they could have built a real face turn back out of the LWO. But they just botched it like they botched most things. I think it was one of Eddie's last storylines in WCW before he left as well. So I wonder if it disbanded because Eddie left. I don't know about that, because I can't remember, but I think that might be why it disbanded. Razor is in Raw. Rhino ECW returns home. Again, loads of Ric Flairs. Now, I don't know why, but they decided to choose Ric Flair without the numbers next to his name, wearing a suit. Why they didn't make that the 88 Ric Flair, I do not know, but this is WE we're talking about. Ric Flair 91 is therefore the guy that I always choose. I love him with shorter hair, and in WCW he had shorter hair anyway. I know he had that look earlier in his career, but this was the one during the Attitude Era that I love. Rick Martel, WCW, he was in it. He wasn't Rick Martel, he was something else, but he was there, so he's allowed. Ricky Morton and obviously the Midnight Express, they go into WCW on my mode. Ricky Steamboat, again, why they just didn't name one of them Ricky Steamboat is beyond me, but Ricky Steamboat 94, because I love his attire. He has one of the best tight designs in the game. I love it. I always do this pale colour effect. It looks really retro and old school. It just looks great. Plus you can see his belly button, and I always prefer the tights where you can see the belly button. So 94, he's in WCW. Rikishi is in Raw. The Road Dogg, I created this Road Dogg. I may go back and try again at some point, because I've got a lot better with face scans now, and I'd love to have a second attempt at his face scan, but it's not a bad one. It's got a lot of downloads, so if you like that, go and find it. Rob Gibson, WCW. The Rock, now again, I understand with this one, the modern Rock is the one without the number, so I don't use that one. I prefer the Rock from the Nation of Domination era, so I always use the one with the hair. It's just a pity those sideburns aren't on the game, so that the Nation of Domination would be perfect if he had those sideburns. Roderick Strong, Raw. Roman Reigns, Raw. Obviously really sad to hear the news about Roman. I wasn't a fan, and probably never will be, of Roman, but you know, we're talking about real life now. Guy needs prayer. Ronda Rousey is on Raw. Rowan, ECW. By the way, Ronda Rousey is overhyped in WWE. Ridiculous. I know she was, and she wasn't a badass at the end of her UFC days. She was kind of bad. She lost her last 2 matches very badly. WWE are building her to be like the Brock Lesnar of the women's division, so it's whatever. Rowan ECW, Roddy Piper WCW. Funnily enough, I love having Roddy Piper as my hardcore, but I'm so glad he's back on the game. He should never have been away, in my opinion. Just one of those legends from WrestleMania 1. Like, we're talking one of the legit legends of wrestling, one of the first major heels, and one of the reasons Hulk Hogan is so big today. Ruby Riott, ECW, Rusev Raw, RVD, ECW. I did give credit to the guy whose model I took for RVD. I changed the outfit as best as I could using a different RVD that I found, and I also made a much better outfit. I think it's a much more accurate outfit and attire to what he wore in ECW. I would love to give him the actual outfit in a high res mode, but I don't have it. I don't know anybody who does. Maybe I'll go on and download somebody with a high res version. In fact, I will do that after I finish this, and just really make that outfit perfect. I changed his hair color because he wasn't a redhead and he wasn't blonde. He was a darker brown. Sabu, ECW, he returns. He's my... I know it's a bit of a cliche having a hardcore title in ECW, but I like it that way, so forgive me, it's my universe mode, I can do what I want. Sabu is the hardcore champion, obviously. I don't think there would be anybody else who would fit that one. Sami Zayn, ECW, Samoa Joe, ECW, Sarah Logan, Raw, Sasha Banks, ECW, Saturn, WCW. I found Perry Saturn a few days ago, completely changed his head. I changed the shape, changed his face model, but it's still a good community creation. You should download that. But I've made a lot of changes, so be warned, it won't look like the guy that you see in front of you on this. Scott Dawson, ECW, Scott Hall, the other half of the Tag Team Champions. If you haven't seen it, go to my NWO stable mode video. I explain in there how I've actually managed to find the font for Scott Hall, and I've changed his trunk so that it has Hall on the front, and I think it says Too Sweet on the back. Scott Norton, he's part of one of my factions with the NWO. He's in WCW. Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump, holla if you hear me. He is on WCW and is the US champion. I actually never give him a major title, so I'm really happy that I've managed to give him something on this game. Seth Rollins, WE, obviously, for the thoroughbred WE. Shane McMahon, he owns WCW on my universe mode, so he goes into WCW. I don't have Eric Bischoff, in case you're wondering. Shane Thorne, WE. Shawn Michaels, 97. Again, why they didn't just name one of them Shawn Michaels, still beyond me, but fine. I hope they don't put the bold version on next year. Just a side note. Please don't put the bold one on here, please. Just give us the option to take the hair off of the current models and we'll be good. And so he's on Raw, obviously in DX. Shayna Baszler, she goes in WCW. Sheamus, WCW. Shelton Benjamin, Raw. Shinsuke Nakamura is in ECW. I think his character suits it well. Sin Cara, WCW. Sonya Deville, Raw. Stephanie McMahon owns ECW, so the way that I've done it, and this is controversial, I know, why not, Paul? But the idea is that in my universe mode, to justify these modern return of all of the brands, McMahon has basically, there's been a power struggle between Vince, Stephanie and Shane, and they break off because they're having an argument over who's the best booker, the best owner of a business, and they all go and take their own company. Stephanie gets ECW, Shane WCW, and Vince sticks with the mothership WWE. Steve Austin is obviously in WE. Steven Regal, I think he's called, I'm not sure if his name's Stephen Regal or William Regal or Lord Regal or something like that in Community Creations, but it's a great looking core. I'm pretty sure I changed the name. He is also my television champion, my WCW television champion, a belt, by the way, that I created that you can also download. Stevie Ray, I found this version. This is the best version of Stevie Ray I can find. I added his black scars to his shoulders. I think you should all do that as well. There are some brilliant little scar tissue elements on the game now that you can add, and they look really good on his back. It makes him look a lot more authentic to the real life Stevie Ray. Now on to Sting and his 50 characters. I never use the old school. I certainly don't understand why they put the modern one on when he looks so much like the 99 version. Just give us the 99 version. We don't need the modern one. Sting from the Wolfpack, I guess he's only on here to justify the red and black NWO theme being on the game. So I use the 99 Sting, always the best. WCW. Psycho Sid, WCW. I loved him in WCW for some reason. I struggled to place him in WE among the title divisions. Tamina, WCW. Tatanka, Raw. Taz, ECW. By the way, this Taz looks awesome. Whoever created it did a great job. I edited the face very slightly, but honestly, it's a great core. You should go and download that one. Ted DiBiase, he's on WCW for me. I've actually put him and IRS in WCW rather than on Raw, just because I think he fitted better in WCW with the storylines that I'm trying to run. Terry Funk, this was again a community creation that I found. I did a lot of editing, a lot of changes. I made his body shape a lot bigger, because he's a big guy. Like, people misunderstand. When he's old, he didn't get thin and skanky. He got big. He stayed big. He just lost definition. That was all. So I made his body shape a lot bigger. I've tried to edit his face as much as I can. Do you know what? It looks a lot better in the actual game than it does on this profile shot that you see. But trust me, it looks really good. Titus O'Neil, ECW. TJP, ECW. Tommy Dreamer, ECW. Big shout out to Tommy Dreamer. One of the first guys to comment on my Instagram when I started my social media channels. So I really love him. He's my ECW champion, which I'll explain later. Tony Nese. Raw, Baldy, Triple H isn't on there. I go with Triple H 01 because that's the time he feuded with The Rock, and he tends to feud with The Rock on my universe mode all the time. As you can see, I've given him the DX outfit, and I think that's the SummerSlam 98 attire that he's wearing there. Again, slightly shaved head of Triple H doesn't even get on either. Trish Stratus, WE, Tucker Knight, WCW, Ty Dillinger, ECW, Tyler Bate, WCW. I couldn't have all the English guys on Raw, so I've decided to put him on WCW because of his technical ability. Tyler Breeze, ECW, The Ultimate Warrior, WWE. Last year, and usually I put him in WCW, but I've decided to throw him back onto his homecoming brand. Yeah, for whatever reason. No real reason for that. You don't need a reason for everything, do you? Ultimo Dragon, WCW. That's a decent design. There's always a good one every year, so he goes in WCW. The Undertaker, I use the 91 version, but actually the 98 version. Weird, I know. I don't understand why they've given him all these different shapes, and then this one is a bit different. He gets two. It's weird. Why can't they just do one Undertaker with 5 different iterations? I do not understand it. Sorry, I'm rant over. He's in WE. Vader, WCW. We're almost at the end now. Vampiro, WCW. Velveteen Dream, Raw. Victor, ECW. X-Pac is in Raw, in his rightful home. And that's a good core, by the way. Really good face scan that they used for that. Xavier Woods is in WE. Zack Ryder, ECW. And that is it. Okay, let's go into the tag teams now. What I said before, I'm not going to go into the tag teams and stables in great detail, but I will just go through them so that you can see what I've created, what I use in my universe mode. American Alpha, WCW, the Ascension, ECW, the Authors of Pain, WE, the B Team, WCW, the Bar, WCW, Bella Twins, Raw, Breezango, ECW, the Brood. That's right, not Edge and Christian, but the Brood. And yes, that's also right. I'm looking for a really good Gangrel course. So again, if you see a good one, let me know. I really want Gangrel to finish off this triad of vampirical design. Brothers of Destruction. Again, you know, standard. They're just the best, aren't they? I mean, how anybody can beat those two in their best, at their peak, is beyond me. Maybe DX are the only other tag team that come close in terms of individual brilliance coming together, but they still don't hold the titles for that long, actually. The Colognes are obviously on there in Raw. The corporate ministry, or corporation, I should say, Vince McMahon runs that stable. I will change the Big Show's attire, because I don't like the fact that he has like the army camo. I prefer him just to wear all black, or the old tights that he used to wear when he first came into the business as Paul White with WE, I should say, not the business. Ken Shamrock, Big Boss Man are on there, and if you didn't realise, 2 of them are champions because, of course, Vinnie Mac runs the show and wants all of his guys to be champions. D-Generation X, everybody except for China in DX that you would expect. I don't have the New Age Outlaws separate on this game. The New Age Outlaws are D-Generation X's tag team representation, but that's fine. I don't mind that. I just don't see the point in having 2 different tag teams from the same faction. It doesn't make sense to me. I'd rather just say, okay, here's the New Age Outlaws. Shawn and Triple H can wrestle together if they want, and X-Pac can just change the Evolution. I know it's controversial, but father and son, Dusty and Cody, they get to go in together. I obviously keep Randy and Batista for obvious reasons, but I love Dusty and Cody in it, and they're in WCW. And so the other thing you've noticed is that this Evolution is not just a one brand faction. It crosses every brand from WE, ECW and WCW, and I do that on purpose. Evolution was supposed to be a brand that ruled the wrestling world, so to justify that, I put them in each brand. They're represented in each one, and obviously each one of them is fighting for a world title or major titles within said brand. Faces of Fear, I added yesterday. The Giant was in the Faces of Fear. I had to wiki it yesterday just to make sure it was authentic and accurate. I almost did the Dungeon of Doom, but the Dungeon of Doom don't have an audio clip on the game. So they do have the Faces of Fear, so I've added that. Vader, the Giant, Kevin Sullivan with his strangely coloured yellowish skin. The Four Horsemen, woo! Obviously on the game. My iteration of the Four Horsemen sticks to 4. Obviously. Lex Luger's in there. He was in there before, if you don't know. Arn Anderson was in it, obviously. Ric Flair, which is why another reason the Evolution don't have Ric Flair is that he's in the Four Horsemen. And then finally, Chris Benoit is like the young up-and-coming stud. So the way I see that is that you've got Ric Flair, world title holder. Lex Luger's like the WCW brand winner, and then which I'll explain later. Then you've got Arn Anderson, who's kind of like tags with Benoit to help Benoit grow as a rookie in the business, etc., etc. But they also break out and do their own individual matches as well. Gallows and Anderson, ECW. The Hardy Boys, WE, with Lita as manager. Harlem Heat with Jacqueline as manager. She was the manager, if you don't know, of Harlem Heat when she was in WCW, so it's accurate. The Hart Foundation. Now, I've got 2 different foundations on this game. I've got the Hart Foundation in WCW, which is Brett and Jim. But then I've got the new foundation, which I'll show you later. Basically, I didn't want Brett in WE. I wanted him in WCW, so I kept the 2 foundations running, but I still separated them. I could put them together, I understand that, but I'm not going to. The Hart Foundation are the Hart Foundation to me. It should always have Brett in. Heavy Machinery are in WCW. The Heenan family was a new faction that I created sort of over the last few days. I created my own Paul Orndorff, as I said earlier. Harley Race was a great core creation that I found, and Bob Orton as well. Randy's dad found him. They all go together because obviously a lot of these guys were in the Heenan family at one point or another, so they all go in as the Heenan family. For some reason you can't add managers to factions, but each one of them has Bobby Heenan as a manager, you'll be glad to know. So that's the Heenan family. The Iconic, I don't even, how do you say their name? I don't know the business at the moment enough to know how to pronounce it, but it looks like it says the Iconics to me, but it could be the Ilconics, I have no idea. But anyway, they're on Raw. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn are back as a tag team. They're in ECW. Legacy. Now, Legacy I love. WCW. This is, to me, a tag team that would have existed had Rick Rude been alive today. Basically, I put the 2 Rudes together in a tag team. And I love that it's the 2 Rudes, but they're obviously both spelled slightly differently. And then Kurt Hennig, best friend with Rick. He would have been a mentor to Bobby in my universe mode. That's how it would work. So those guys form a stable called Legacy. I love it. It's a really good a really good stable that I use, and they have really good feuds as well with different divisional wrestlers. It's really fun having them on the game. Now, the LWO I didn't have on last year, but this year I decided to get the logo. I created it myself. It's had loads of downloads since I put it on Community Creations. Go check that out. But I love this stable, and what I did this year is add Alberto Del Rio to the mix, giving a bit more of that modern infusion into a classic stable. They are a heel stable, so that includes Ray. So I think it might be one of the first times he was a heel, actually, but anyway, I like him as a heel in this game because it's a bit different, but also the LWO now is a great little stable team. Money Incorporated, whatever you want to call them, $1 Million tag team. Ted DiBiase and IRS reunited in WCW. The Nation of Domination. I've taken it upon myself personally to create the Nation of Domination this year. Apart from Mark Henry, who there's a great core, as I said earlier, that you should just download. But I created Farouk, D'Lo, and Karma Mustafa. They're all on Community Creations for you. You can just search X Harper, or you can just search Nation of Domination, or search each individual wrestler's name. You'll see them on there. D'Lo's very low down because he's the newest that I've put up. But Karma, you'll find straight away. Farouk, you'll find more or less straight away. But I love it. I love The Rock in there. I obviously have a bit of tension within this stable between The Rock and Farouk. The Rock trying to break out. I love the Nation at that time, where The Rock was beginning to break into his own character, but was still part of the Nation. I love that he has the backup of 4 other big guys, so I always keep him in the Nation. Them and DX really fight well against each other. Another reason to keep them in the Nation. The New Day are on WE. I actually really like them as a modern tag team. I think they're great characters, so they stay together. The New Foundation is essentially the Hart Foundation minus Brett and Jim. And the New Foundation are in WE on their own. And the reason I separate them as well is that I need them to be separate tag teams. Whereas if it's the Hart Foundation, that would appear in WE and WCW, and it just confuses things. So I separated it. You've got the New Foundation in WE, which is one side of the Hart family, and then the other side are the Hart Foundation in WCW. NWO. Too sweet. Okay. 4 of these guys you'll recognize. One of them you'll be like, what the heck is he doing? Hogan, Hall, Nash, Macho, they're all in WCW, acting and running wild like the NWO that we know and love from the beginning of WCW. But I add my character in there because I love the NWO, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And Ghost sits in on the WE side of things. So the idea for me was that the NWO decided to infiltrate WWE, so they throw my character into WE and tell him to go and win everything and dominate the industry there, so that they're the kings of both of the top 2 companies, if you like. But that's how I do it. Hate me if you like. Now, what I've done this year, I've added the NWO Wolfpack. Now, the reason I did this is because every year I download cores and even create them, as I have here with the Disciple. The Disciple, by the way, is my creation. You can download him, Community Creations. But I don't want to put these guys, these are the losers of the NWO. I don't want to put them on that brand, because if they're in this stable, in my opinion, it waters down the value and the strength of the NWO and what it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the elite of the industry, the best in the business. The Wolfpack, therefore, is like the hangers-on, the followers who the NWO like. They still acknowledge they exist as NWO, but the NWO Wolfpack guys are basically the losers who aren't good enough to hang with these guys. But they're still allowed to just have the NWO name. They're still part of the faction, but I keep them separate. I don't... In my WCW, if I could go back in time, what I would have done, instead of having 50 wrestlers step out of limos, what I would have done was always stuck with the core 4 guys, maybe 5 at the most. And those 5 guys, with Eric Bischoff, would have stuck together. They would have been a tight group who ruled the industry, or who ruled WCW and caused chaos. These guys, I would have made more of a comical kind of, they're the losers who want to be in... I don't know how you say it in America, but the best analogy would be that these are the guys who want to be the cool kids at school and will do anything to be cool and to try and be cool. So these would be like the desperate team, and these would be the cool team. And then these would just follow them around, and they would be locked out of locker rooms. So the elite would go into the locker room, and then one of them would close the door in their face. You know, I just think there was a lot of potential at using that, what happened in real life, where a lot of the wrestlers who wanted more money, wanted to get into the NWO because that was where the money was, and so they were desperately selling their souls to try and get in. And I would have played more off of that. They tried it for a while, but when they did it, it was way too late to do it. They should have done it in the first place, but they didn't. Anyway, enough of that. That's the Wolfpack. Raven's Flock. As you can see, I've now got Billy Kidman, Raven, and Perry Saturn. I don't love that Billy Kidman, but it's good enough. Raven looks awesome. As I said earlier, I changed his face, but you can download that version from someone else on Community Creations. But I have changed the face a lot here. But I love the Ravens Flock. They're a great stable in WCW. You've got the Revival in ECW, the Road Warriors WCW, Rock and Roll Express WCW, the Shield Raw, although Dean Ambrose is in ECW, just remember that. But the tag teams stay on WWE. Titus Worldwide ECW, TM61, Raw Tons of Funk, which is a name that I made up for Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack because that name is way too long and it doesn't fit when you try and edit it on the tag team mode. So I go with this new tag team called Tons of Funk. I love the name. It's a great play on the name. There's an audio clip for it, so they actually announce them as Tons of Funk, which is brilliant. And again, it's just based on Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, so it's a good tag team. Love them on ECW. It also gives the Dudleys a good rivalry in the tag division, which I like. The Usos, ECW, the Wyatt family, another bunch of boys that I put back together. The Wyatt family are on ECW, and that is it for my stables and tag teams. Finally, I can finish with all of the roster. Now, just to let you know, there's a couple of wrestlers that are still going to be put onto this universe mode. I'm waiting to find their versions. Gangrel being one of them. Al Snow, I would love to get Al Snow and Crash Holly for the hardcore division in WE. But for now, I'm ready and I'm almost ready to go. Let me show you two more things. These are the shows that I have, and you'll see the calendar and how that plays out later. WCW Nitro, you can see 95 wrestlers in that roster. The biggest roster by far of all the brands that I have, and that was how it was in real life, by the way. I think at their height they had 97 active roster members, I think. Anyway, number of matches I have 7. I don't even touch the match table because I've got my own match types that I've created. Anyway, my championships and Money in the Bank. I don't have Money in the Banks, but here are the champions that I've started with. World Champion, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Men's Champion for the United States title is Scott Steiner. You've got Steven Regal as the television champion. You've got the NWO, the Outsiders, as the tag team champions. Cody Rhodes as the cruiserweight champion, and Goldberg starts at the bottom of the pile, but he managed to win the $1 million title. So, those are the champions. You might notice there are no women. It's not because I'm sexist, I promise you. It's literally because I just prefer the Attitude Era, and they didn't really focus on the women's division at that point as much as they do nowadays, which is obviously and looks like a much better product than it was when it was just Divas. So ECW, I've had to create and recreate a lot of belts in this division. But here's what I've got so far. The world champion is Kurt Angle. Sorry, you'll notice 5 matches per show, which explains why one of these belts is vacant, but I'll get to that soon. Kurt Angle, world champ. ECW title, which I'll explain again in a minute, is Tommy Dreamer. Braun Strowman is the television champion. By the way, I created the television title. You should go and download that from Community Creations. Obviously, the Dudleys are the tag team champions. I've set up a cruiserweight title for ECW. Again, it's on Community Creations. It's one of my favourite belts that I've created. I hope you agree. I think it looks really nice with the colour scheme, etc. And then hardcore title, Sabu. Basically, these 2 belts I had to create because ECW doesn't have enough titles to justify the division. But it's got 70 wrestlers, which isn't bad. Except that. On to Raw, which is on Friday, which it actually used to be, if you remember back in the Attitude Era. 7 matches, participants 81, so it's not far off of WCW. But the belts that I use for this, you've got the world title, Jake Roberts, the Intercontinental Gold Dust, you've got the New Age Outlaws, the tag team champions, you've got Ken Shamrock, the US champion, you've got the European title, which is obviously my guy Ghost, and then you've got Big Boss Man hardcore title. End of. Now, there was an issue with this game where there's only 6 titles per show, right? Well, clearly I want other belts on my game, and what I found is there's a bit of a bug where if you create a title and it's not one of the 6 titles in whatever brand, it can be any brand, but if it's not in any of these brands and you try and assign it to a wrestler, it doesn't remember the history, and so it actually deletes the wrestler that holds the belt from holding the title. So an example, I'm just going to quickly show you this so that you understand what I mean. If I go into championships, I create a really crap version of the hardcore title. It's not on there anymore, but you can still download it if you want. One poor person did download it. I thank them so much for that. But let's say that I want to give, you know, Bam Bam that title. Now remember that this particular belt is not on any of the ranking title slots in any of the brands, okay? So if I come out as though I've saved it, now I don't know if the new patch has actually fixed this, by the way, but let's see if it has. So if I jump back straight into the universe mode and go in to that championship, oh, lo and behold, where is he? Where's Bam Bam? And this is something that happens on this game all the time. So I have titles that I've created that aren't on those ranking belts. Now the problem is that nobody can hold those belts now until WE fix this issue. However, I did find a workaround, and the workaround was simply to add a different event. Add another event, and then you can put all the belts that you want in the other event. Now, I'm going to go through those belts in a minute, but what I've done here is the 40 participants basically are all the guys from the 3 brands that I want to win any of these titles. So I've put all of those into this event. It's a 3-match show, so it's real short, and I'm justifying it as like a cross-brand, a universal brand, if you like, of WE, ECW, and NWO, WE, all of them together. And it's like an exhibition night on a Saturday, so there are 3 matches, and basically what will happen, there will be ranks for each of these titles, and as you'll see, there's divisions. So in each division, there will be 1 match from one of 3 divisions, 3 of 6 divisions. Not sure which ones yet, but it'll probably be, you know, a match in this division, a match for the WCW, and a match for the WE. So now I've said that, let's explain these titles. I have my own universal title that I created literally yesterday. It's on Community Creations. I really love the simplicity of it. I used to use the Undisputed title to represent the best wrestler in the business. Nowadays, I've realised I should just create my own, because I've done it enough before, and I do it with all the other brands. So I created my own universal title. By the way, the black strap looks so much better with gold. And the idea of this belt is that this is a 1-night belt only, so you can only win it at 1 event, and that is at the Night of Champions, or the Clash of Champions in my universe mode. And what I do is, in the main event at Clash of Champions, I have a 3-way elimination match between the champion of WE, the champion of WCW, and the champion of ECW. So all 3 brands come together and they fight in a 3-way elimination match for the Universal title, and that establishes who is the best in the business. Now, think about this properly. If I just go to champion, I'll illustrate exactly what I mean. So if I were to do Clash of Champions right now, it would be a 3-way match between Hollywood Hogan, Kurt Angle, and Jake Roberts. And the winner of that wins the Universal title. Okay, done. So what I also create is a brand title for every brand. There's a WE title, there's a WCW title, and there's an ECW title. Now, this is basically the representative of each brand. It's not the World Championship. It's just the face of every company, essentially, or the person who's going to run as the face of each company. Sometimes it can be a heel, but usually I make it a face who wins it. For example, Stone Cold wins this one. Sting usually holds the WCW one, and obviously Tommy Dreamer. The idea is that whoever's synonymous with the brand tends to win the belt. And if you look at the divisions for each title, that makes a bit more sense. So what you can see here is that all these guys are the people I would say represent the WE, and potentially would represent the WE as like the face of the brand. And again, these are the guys who I would say represent WCW as the face of the company. So it's separate to all of the world titles that I've got in my actual brand modes, but these are the guys that can win it. And what I love about this is that it means that I can have these belts separately outside of my other brand modes, and because they're custom titles, it means that the memory that I showed you, the bug that exists, that won't happen again for these belts. So what I would advise you is, if you have titles that you've created but can't fit into your slots on your brands, create another brand, make it a free match event, make it really quick, simulate all the matches if you like, but just use it as a placeholder for all of the created belts that you want to have wrestlers win. Now, I also have a Universal Tag Team title that works in the same way as the Universal title. This year, obviously, we've got the Triple Threat Tag Team matches. So the way that I use the Universal Tag title is that the top 3 tag team champions from ECW, WE, and WCW, they will have a 3-way tag match at Clash of Champions for the Universal title. And then they will, obviously, the winner becomes like the greatest tag team in the universe, sort of thing. But the added thing that I give to these 2 titles, if you hold this belt, you only hold it for a year, unless you win again a year later at Clash of Champions. But it's a yearly belt that's held all year round, and it gives you 1 random shot at any title that you want, because you're the greatest in the business, whether it's a tag team or singles. So you can basically go after any title you want. It gives you a 1 title shot that you can use in the year. So there's an added value to these belts. That's why I put them in the universe mode. That's why they're more valuable than some of the others. And it's a nice way of separating them from the WE title, the WCW World title, and the ECW title. It just gives it a bit of an extra kudos to win it. Also, I've got Money in the Bank, a Universal Money in the Bank, which gives you a shot at any title in my universe. So it works similar to these belts, but this can actually be won by anyone. This is something that I'm hoping, I haven't got to Money in the Bank yet, but this is the actual briefcase that I want to use at Money in the Bank, because the idea is that you can go after any title that you want. It's the only briefcase, or it's the only title, Money in the Bank, whatever, that allows you to cross brands. So if a WCW guy wins it, they could effectively challenge for a WWE title. I'm not saying that I will use it that way, but that is the premise, and that's how I set up the rules for my universe mode. So that is my universe calendar, and that, my friends, is almost it. I'm going to quickly show you all the belts. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to let you see those. I mean, I'll talk over it, but you can see all the belts are on here on my game. I don't use a lot of them, to be quite honest with you, but that's life, you know. It's down to personal preference. Side note, I am going to use the United Kingdom title at some point. Not quite sure. Because that's not a custom title, it doesn't matter if I assign that to anybody on the roster, even though it's not in the brand. That's the good news. If it's a created title that's already on the game, if it's a default title, then that bug that I showed you earlier does not apply. It means that you can give that to anyone on the roster and they will hold it, even if they're not under one of the brands. So that's the good news. So the UK title, the NXT title, I still use the NXT title, by the way, and I will use the North American title. Essentially what I do is I use the NXT title for the jobbers. It just allows all the jobbers in my game to actually get a bit of credit and to still be able to wrestle and get a bit of television time. But I'm almost ready, guys. This is it. I'm so close to being able to start my universe mode. Hi, Elder. I'd love to know what you mean. Of course I can. But what I'll do is I'll show you this. Send me a message on what you want, specifically on what help I can give you. And once I see the message come up, I'll answer it if that's okay. Until then, I'm just going to run through my own universe mode and how I've set it up. So as you can see, I've been for a week already. Although that was an accident. The game just did it, and I didn't actually get to wrestle. So what I did, I used the first. I actually started at Raw, and I used those first 3 shows that are blacked out here to establish my champions. So all those belts were won in the first week, and then I'm now back a week later at Raw is War. I've added the main event since then, so I've got Saturday Night Main Event, which is a 3 wrestle show. That is going to be like an exhibition event of the best of the best of the industry. Then I have cross-branded events. I have Payback, which is WE and ECW combined. I have Bash at the Beach, which is WCW. The idea is very simple, that every brand has a pay-per-view each month, but there's only 2 events every month, okay? So ECW Capital Punishment in June, King of the Ring, which is for WE and WCW only. I do actually do the whole King of the Ring tournament parallel to a normal universe mode. So what I do is I go out of the universe mode, create a King of the Ring tournament, and then what I do is this really weird thing where I flip between the two and just wrestle a tournament match, then I do another match in the universe mode, then I go back and do a tournament match, etc, until the finals. July, ECW Bad Blood. Again, I've created all of these logos. Most of them are available for download. Money in the Bank, which is WE and WCW. However, I do throw in some ECW guys if I can to that one. That's a bit of a cheat one for me. August is ECW Hardcore Heaven and WCW NWO WE SummerSlam. You've got September ECW Extreme Rules, WE and NWO Clash of Champions. October, there's WCW Halloween Havoc, and then WE ECW Hell in a Cell. November, of course, ECW November to Remember, and WE WCW Survivor Series. December is ECW WE TLC and WCW NWO Starrcade. You've got January, which is ECW's Royal Rumble, and then you've got WE and WCW's Royal Rumble. February is ECW Barely Legal. It's also my Elimination Chamber month, which is a bit different to how they do it in real life, but I decided to do it this way. The idea being that February is actually a really down month in the calendar, and I think that the down month should always be the month before WrestleMania, not 2 months before WrestleMania. I think that it helps the build up to the WrestleMania matches if you don't have any big significant events the month before. So Road Wild for WCW, which is like an exhibition event in itself, and then you've obviously got Battleground ECW and WE leading up to the end of the year, where it's ECW Extreme Mania, which is obviously ECW's WrestleMania, and then you've got WE WCW NWO WrestleMania, which is a beautiful brand and event. So that is my whole calendar year. Now what I'm going to start doing eventually, I'm going to play through a week on my own, so you guys aren't going to get to see that. So I'm going to play through actually until Monday Nitro. So I'm going to play through Raw, the Saturday main event, and then Payback. Once I'm done with that, I'm probably going to do a video that just lets everybody know where we're up to and what I'm planning to do. And then I'm going to start from Monday Nitro and build through to Bash of the Beach and then beyond. But I will start televising a lot more and live streaming a lot of these events. I'd love to know your feedback on this. If you want to see specific events, let me know. If you don't want to see events, let me know. Also, help me please to understand what to do better when it comes to the live streams. If you think I'm doing things that aren't that good or boring or not helpful, let me know. I'm open to feedback and criticism. It's not a big deal to me. As long as you're honest, I'm happy. So, with all that said, that is it for this video. I'm Alda. Please send me a message. You can do it on YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter at xharperco or Instagram at xharper.co. Send me your message there and I will happily answer you back and give you all the information you need. If not, just leave a comment on the YouTube channel and I will get back to you on there as well. Until then, I'm just going to show you my creations before I go. As you can see, I went over 20,000 downloads last few days ago, so today's been good. I've had a load of downloads coming through. Thank you again for everyone who downloads any of my content. I really appreciate it. And as you can see from the career mode, you can see all of the iterations here and all of the characters that I've got that are being downloaded. You can see all of the images that I've got that I mentioned to you that I use within my universe mode. Here are the arenas that I use within my universe mode. I've got, obviously, my WCW pack tends to be the most popular, but I have got some other ones. I've got some ECW ones that are popular. I've got some retro arenas that I created that are doing quite well. Super Brawl is catching up as I hoped it would. Survivor Series 98 looks great. King of the Ring 98, great. Royal Rumble 94, great. Barely Legal 97 is probably the worst one of the bunch. I've uploaded Extreme Mania for you because it's the only custom one that I've really done this year on Community Creations. Usually I upload all my custom ones, but this year I decided to do one more for the fans and to create more for you guys. So most of them are ones that I don't even use myself, or I use them on like single matches outside of universe mode. ECW is my weekly ECW arena, so download that one as well if you want. Championships, as I said, the Universal title's now up. It was up late last night. And then all the other titles that I use in the game are available. As you can see, television title's doing really well. Everybody loves that one. Money in the Banks, I've got some random ones for you. You know, either do or don't download them. It doesn't bother me, to be honest. It's up to you guys. You need what you want, and you know what you want, and you need what you want. So go and download the ones that you like the most. Shows are there. I've got a couple of spare shows. If you want me to create a show specifically, if there's a pay-per-view that you love from the Attitude Era, whether it's WCW or WE, let me know, and I will have a look at it. I might even create it and put it up for you. Movesets, I obviously put Ghosts on there because he has the best moveset on the game, in my opinion. Eddie Guerrero, Randy Savage, Jake Roberts, Goldberg's doing really well. Ric Flair, Stone Cold, Kevin, DDP, Brett, Shawn, The Rock, Sting, and Scott Hall. They're all done. So that's it. Thank you again for the one person I can see who's been watching this most of the way through. I would kiss you if I was with you in person, just to say thank you. Or maybe not if you don't want me to, but thank you so much for staying and watching the whole thing. I hope that you found it entertaining and enjoying. If you like it, like the video on YouTube, let me know your feedback. If you don't like it, please don't just click the down like. Please actually tell me what you don't like so that I can make these videos better and more entertaining as we go forward. I am going to probably do a couple of videos, at least one today, where I'm going to go through my stables. So what I'm going to do is just jump in and show you. I'm not going to do this now, but I'm just going to go in there so that you can see what I mean. I'm going to go into each of my stables that I've created and actually show you the recipes and how I've created them and what I use in terms of their entrances and their attires that I use, all of that stuff. I'm going to go through all of those over the coming days and weeks. So look out for those if you're interested. And I will start doing some universe videos soon. So, I am X Harper. You have been awesome. Thank you so much. And until next time, what?